Hi everybody, this is Nancy from the team at Community Homeworks in Kalamazoo. Thank you for tuning in to another story about the people we meet and the impact of our work. Since 2009, Community Homeworks has been working hard to help homeowners stay safely in their homes by providing critical home repairs to income-eligible people. We also offer home maintenance classes and even lend tools so we can cultivate basic skills as we build relationships across neighborhoods. This podcast, called Being Right at Home, will include stories of empowerment, stories of hope, stories of what can happen when people work together. In the words of T.S. Eliot, home is where one starts from. So let's begin. Well, hello everybody. Today we have Emily Greenman in our studio. Emily and her husband Sean Wright founded Community Homeworks. So as we close out a year of celebrations to commemorate our 15 years in the community, I am thrilled that Emily's with us. Today it's about looking back at our roots. Knowing this, I believe we can look forward and all we can do together in the future. So Emily, thank you for being here and welcome to Being Right at Home.
Oh, thank you so much. This is really 100% my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
I know. And I'm thrilled because I know you are a mom, a wife, a community volunteer, active in your church. So giving us this time in this busy month, thank you. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
So let's begin. I want to look back to that 2009 time, or maybe it was 2008 when the thoughts and the visions came into view. Who had the vision? Who started the conversation between you and Sean? Can you look back and just try to help us remember?
Actually, the initial need we spotted. Probably in our time, both of us were working at Kalamazoo Valley Habitat for Humanity. And I remember in like 2006 or so, having multiple phone calls and somebody saying, hey, I have this problem with my house. And then having to go through the whole spiel of, well, that's not necessarily within what we do. That's not within our mission. Let me see if I can help you figure out where to go. So that there's always been kind of that thought was in the back of my head. But it wasn't until my time when I was working as the adult and family coordinator, programs coordinator at South County Community Services, when I was actually engaging with families with an emergency, be it energy-related, housing, food, that type of basic need meeting, providing emergency assistance, that I ran into the problem of, we really have this critical repair need. We have an emergency. We don't know necessarily what to do. Can you help us figure this out? Frequently it was leaky roofs. There were a lot of appliance or mechanical failures, but also just really simple fixes. And I'm just like, man, I have no idea what to do about this. This is not within our scope of work. I don't know necessarily how to help you find the right person to meet that need. And then there was this one phone call that somebody called. They had state emergency relief through the Department of Health and Human Services. So that is a grant that's available to families who qualify to meet an emergent home repair need. Their water heater was out, so they didn't have hot water at the time. And they were trying to get 3 bids from contractors, which is required, to get their water heater replaced. And they had a certain amount of time that they had to get those 3 bids. Meanwhile, they didn't have hot water. They had called, this family called and said, hey, I can't get contractors to return my call. I don't know where to call. We're running out of time. We don't have hot water. And it just didn't like that. I just couldn't get my head wrapped around the fact that we don't have a way to meet this family's need.
No, knowing you, I can just imagine that frustration. You probably wanted to go yourself, is my guess.
Yeah, I was like, I have no idea what to do. So I called Sean and I said, Sean, how is there no means of not short circuiting, but shortening the step. How is there not a nonprofit contractor to work specifically with families using state emergency relief? And we kind of, we talked about it. And then, kind of the next call came. And I was like, why are nonprofits not utilizing this state emergency relief available? Why is there not somebody that can better use this money at cost and fix this emergency or critical repair, where there's all of this resource that is going untapped? There has to be a way that we could figure this out. And it wasn't until I put 2 and 2 together with the state emergency relief. I wish you guys could see my hands. This pool over here. And then I realized that we were doing that, but with utility bills, where we were helping families get state emergency relief to pay a shut-off notice.
Okay.
And then we were going around. So we got the state emergency relief, and then they went to Salvation Army, which is the next step.
Okay.
And then they were taking that bill and asking churches, other area nonprofits to help get the difference paid. And I was like, oh, if we can do this for a utility bill, we can do this for a critical repair.
Okay.
And that initially was the start of, okay, yeah, there needs to be a critical repair or emergency. At this point in time, we did call it an emergency repair. That we could do the same thing.
Keeping current homeowners in
their home safely, but meeting that need of no water heater, furnace is broken, were 2 major issues. And then things that would affect weather tightness of a home, broken door, broken windows, those sorts of things that essentially cause higher utility bills.
So the next step in that, once you realized there was this gap in services, or it was very cumbersome to use what existed, what did you do? What did you and Sean do to say, okay, we're going to drop everything and apply for a 501(c)(3)? Is that what you did? Or?
There was not a drop everything moment.
No drop everything.
There was not a drop everything. There was a period of time that we kind of shopped this idea around and said, hey, we've identified this gap in what we would call in housing land post-purchase support. There are agencies that get families into housing. There are families that build housing. But there's nobody that is supporting a homeowner to maintain their housing and protect their asset and to make sure that their housing is stable. And there's that other, big part of this was these astronomical shut-off notices from Consumers Energy. That's a big part of the story also. When I was working at South County Community Services, I was seeing utility bills and shut-off notices for $500, $600, $700, $2,000. So that's kind of looming large in our minds also, is how can we reduce energy expenses for families? So we thought, okay, this is our proposal. This is how we think that we could solve this problem. Let's talk to other agencies who are working in this area, Habitat, KNHS, United Way. This is a solution. This is the problem we see. This is a solution that we have.
These are the people in the housing arena.
Can you add this to the work that you're already doing it? Because we all know, because every housing agency gets that phone call of, I need help doing this repair to my home. And they're like, oh, well, we don't do that. So we all knew that this was a problem. But our goal absolutely was not to start a new nonprofit.
It wasn't?
Oh, no.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No.
Oh, you wanted somebody else to assume that it was already in the... Okay, that's...
Yeah,
makes
because
sense.
Given the economic kind of ecology happening in 2007, 2008, 2009, things were pretty bleak in Michigan.
We just had gone through a recession.
We were in the right in the middle of that recession, the big housing bubble. People were in a lot of trouble. Foundation earnings were way down, and what the community needed was not another nonprofit to support. And I can't remember what the number was at the time, but there were like a gajillion nonprofits active in Kalamazoo County at the time. We're like, we do not need another one.
So why is there another one? Us.
So why did you do this?
Why did you do this?
So in all of these conversations were a lot of people, I don't know if I should say this in a podcast, but the irony, being at that 15th anniversary celebration, a good portion of the people in the room told me and Sean that we were nuts.
Oh.
And to go away.
15 years ago.
15 years ago.
Why? What
are you kids doing?
Yeah.
We don't need another nonprofit. You guys don't know what you're doing. Go home.
Oh.
Yeah. So
why didn't you not go home?
Because we knew we had a really good solution.
Oh.
So, and really amazing partnerships.
So it sounds like, okay, Chapter 2.
Okay. So we're shopping this idea. Nobody's wants to take it on. But Kalamazoo Valley Habitat for Humanity had a program for homebuyer education, which nestled so perfectly with what we wanted Community Homeworks to do. So education has been hard-baked into Community Homeworks from the get-go. Oh. Really empowering and giving people the tools and the knowledge to be able to face these challenges, hopefully prevent them, but to face them on their own. So KVHH, Kalamazoo Valley Habitat, had a homebuyer education program. And so part of Sean's AmeriCorps service, they took him on as an AmeriCorps volunteer, was to build and really bulk up their education curriculum.
Oh.
So he spent a year as an AmeriCorps volunteer, really deep diving into the scope of what a homebuyer needs to know, but also with the thought of this is going to become a Community Homeworks program. Oh. And everybody had that thought and idea.
Okay, so there was a consensus around that.
It was an incubation period.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yes.
So where did the name come from, Community Homeworks?
Well, because we was going to do it in the community.
That's for the community.
Homeworks, actually, we had spent a lot of time looking at other nonprofits, including Home Repair Services.
Up in Kent
County. Mm-hmm. Dave Jacobs was an amazing partner to us as we were thinking this through. We knew that Community Homeworks type model worked because it worked in Kent County. Mm-hmm. Granted, Kalamazoo and Kent County aren't identical, but very similar in terms of demographic and issues and challenges and that sort of thing. But we had also spent a lot of time looking in the Great Lakes area, visiting nonprofits. Especially in Minneapolis, St. Paul, that has a really strong progressive housing and urban redevelopment culture. Mm-hmm. And one organization that a friend was doing her AmeriCorps service at was called Urban Homeworks.
Oh.
And we thought, well, this is a close nod and kind of a through line for kind of the incubation and encouragement that we received in Minneapolis.
Wow.
But it's a logical name.
Yeah.
In terms of where the focus is, where the work is being done, and the goal is building up a home and protecting that as a wealth generation, wealth building tool for families.
Right. And when you think of all the existing homes we have in our county, which we now serve the entire county, it's enormous. We've got to keep people in their homes. I mean, it just makes sense, but in a safe way, in a way that they're safe and they are empowered. So, wow, Emily, wow. So, 501(c) was, you received that in 2009? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. And then how long were you and Sean really active with day-to-day activities?
Okay, so what is this, chapter 3.5?
Yeah.
Chapter 4. So initially, we were partnering, like I said, with Kalamazoo Valley Habitat, and the Vine Neighborhood Association served actually as our first fiduciary. and we applied for CDBG funding from the city of Kalamazoo and received a sizable award, Vine serving as fiduciary and kind of host to us. We also applied that year with Vine to the main foundations here in the city of Kalamazoo. And I think our first budget, actually, I had to ask Sean. He said I'd have to look it up, but was slightly just over $100,000.
Wow.
$100,000. Yeah, so it was about $138,000 our first program year. So we were working in conjunction with Vine Neighborhood as our fiduciary. Our offices were housed there.
Wow.
And we were in the steps of applying for our 501c3.
Oh, wow. Wow. And we're now over $2 million
Yes.
budget. So, wow. Wow.
But the growth that we had between that first $100,000 and the point that we hit $1 million was a very short period of time. It was within the first 5 years.
Okay.
And that type of growth we were not expecting is very unprecedented. And it takes my breath away looking at the fact that it actually was sustainable. That we had a meteoric rise, but there never was really a crash.
Yeah. So, wow. So you guys stayed on board. See, I came 2 years ago, and you weren't day to day. You're on a board. But
I've actually always been on the board. There has been periods of time where I've done in unpaid capacity. I worked specifically with development and fund development activities. I was writing grants and doing reporting up until I don't remember when, until we hired on more staff.
Okay.
We brought on Celine Kaiser.
Oh, yeah.
To work with fund development. She was a coworker of mine from Girl Scouts Heart of Michigan. Uh-huh. And then Sean was executive director until 2018.
Oh. So for the first 9 years,
yes.
Sean was, wow. Good. Wow. How were you funded? How did you develop a funding stream in those early years?
So in the early years, just like with the typical life cycle of a nonprofit, we were heavily grant funded, as to be expected. So the goal is that you initially start out with grants being your primary source, and with time that gradually decreases, and your individual donors and then project-based income should increase. I'm doing these graphed hands, everybody.
Yeah. Emily uses her hands when she talks.
Yes. I'm doing these hands with my axes. Don't you see them? So primarily we were grant funded. Kalamazoo Community Foundation, Irving S. Gilmore Foundation, Upjohn. The city of Kalamazoo was a major supporter. We were also using state emergency relief funds from the state, from the Department of Health and Human Services. And then also we were able to craft a program to utilize rebates from Consumers Energy through their
appliance? Was it
through mechanical replacement for furnaces and water heaters.
Oh, okay.
So we were able to actually leverage the funds that we were receiving from funders to then get reimbursement from Consumers Energy through Clear Result.
Nice. Wow. So now it's 2024, the end, as we have celebrated, and you alluded to our celebration. We had a big one in September, and saw a lot of our collaborators, all these people that you had gone to and asked for a blessing or a partnership or both. And so here we are. What is it like to be you to this year, thinking that need you identified back when you were working for South County Community Services, and that idea and that assessed need is now who we are and what we are? What's that like?
That is a really thoughtful question, Nancy. I appreciate it. it's very humbling. For me, there were these kind of milestones that we hit. There was the time that we had our first feature in Encore magazine, and for a kid who grew up in Kalamazoo, going to the symphony, that's a big deal. It was a big deal for me. I know that that's something that would attract my parents' attention and their friends. That's a big, so and so was featured in Encore, so that was a big deal. And I was like, man, I can't. We hit that, and then there's the point where we hired Chris as our first non-founding executive director. Was a huge milestone for me too. That wow, we have sent this organization off to college, right? It is no longer like we're completely out of the picture, other than staying on the board. But this is completely launched and is now out of our day-to-day hands.
So we're young adults, is what you're saying.
Yeah, no, you guys you're doing it.
Yeah, we're doing it. We're
checking in.
We're doing,
but you guys are doing your own.
And you come to visit. And you come to visit.
Yeah, and I get to enjoy the holidays with you.
Yeah, right.
And it's great.
Right.
So it is, but it's very humbling. And it's crazy when you stop and think about, man, I can't believe it actually worked. We often, so many times, I would assume that you do this in your kitchen too. You hear about a problem and you're like, oh, why doesn't somebody come up with something to do that? Or why couldn't we do this and this and this? And it's, sometimes I'm without words where I'm just like, man, we actually saw a problem, came up with a solution, and that solution actually really works.
You implement it and
it's replicable, and we're seeing the needle move on housing stability, homelessness prevention, carbon emission reductions, expenses for families being reduced, and hopefully enabling families to generate wealth.
Right. As we build community.
Yeah. Well, and another big goal that we had, which we have seen happen too, is housing nonprofits. Typically, we'll say late 90s, early 2000s, things were really siloed. Like there was not a whole lot of collaboration between Habitat. There was not collaboration between Habitat and KNHS, and then all of these other kind of outliers. And for a period of time, we were able to really work across agencies. And I can't remember who I was talking to, but really the secret, I think, to success early on is that we were not in it about making community homeworks a centerpiece, but we wanted to play with other people as long as they wanted to play too.
Yeah.
So we were looking for collaborators from day one, obviously with our partnership with the Vine Neighborhood Association and to a certain degree cost sharing with Open Doors. And then other housing agencies, as we began to be able to do mechanical work. Sean was able to secure a mechanical license, so we were able to share and reduce costs for other housing agencies needing HVAC work. So our posture, and I think we were successful at any time that we can make a partnership to solve a problem and not necessarily get credit, as long as somebody wants to play, we wanted to play too.
And we're reaping the benefits of that because we could not do what we're doing without our collaborators. And so thank you for that. Thank you. Because it's the only way to be effective and efficient and work on behalf of the people who need it most. So thank you.
Absolutely.
So Emily, you talked about different funding streams and this need to be sustainable as an organization. What should our listeners know about that?
Well, we can't do this without money. And I know that there are a lot of organizations, especially in Kalamazoo, that do really amazing work. And I couldn't leave our chat here without really asking on behalf of the organization for people to consider the impact that they could have, especially towards the end of the year, by making a gift to Community Homeworks. Really, the the funds that we are able to pull in from outside of the county are magnified by the gifts that individuals give. And I would really encourage potential donors and our current donors that the impact of a small gift is doubled, trebled potentially, not only by funds coming from foundations, from other donors, from the city, but really the stability that comes from keeping a family in their home rather than facing the possibility of a cold winter, losing their kids, becoming homeless. The impact is multi-generational. The way that families keep their wealth in the United States is through property and home ownership. So your small gift might seem insignificant, but to a family that is kind of teetering on the edge of being able to maintain their home and keep it, or teetering on the edge between a safe home and homelessness, houselessness, your gift has a huge impact.
I have a ton more to ask you, but I am wondering if you would come back in January.
Oh, absolutely.
Would you?
I'd be so honored.
Okay, let's do part 2 in January. And I just want to hear more about impact and stories from the community. But we'll let our listeners go for now. And in the meantime, I hope everybody has a great holiday season. And Emily, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Nancy.
Well, that's it for this time, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Between now and next month, we will continue to be in our community, making a difference. But before signing off, I want to ask for your help. Please consider supporting us with a donation of any size. You can easily do this by visiting our website, communityhomeworks.org. Your help will allow us to empower more families as we build a stronger community, one home at a time. So until next month, please take care of yourself and each other. From our team to you, bye-bye for now.